Without liquidity in the system, not only are they raising rates, but they're obviously selling bonds at the same time. It's the fastest rise in rates in history. I think I just get angry at people who said the Fed needs credibility to fight inflation. Wait, you'll get what you want. You'll get this recession. It's definitely coming.
Starting with something like this was not meant to scare you. It is actually meant to give you the insights of what kind of opportunity awaits. Now, as an XRP investor, and we all look for the XRP, you need to actually be a little bit concerned. On the short term, we are now below the moving average. The moving average is acting as a resistance, pushing the price lower. So when you go on a daily, you still see some negative action where you are trying really hard to hold on about this moving average, which right now does not seem to be working. So you go on to a normal candle and you see the price is below the 21 exponential moving average, which is not a great thing to look at as your RSI slows down. What we want to observe here is that the price comes to this range and bounce off. Now that is something key in this market, but this is a market, as we just showed, macro scenarios are everywhere. Like you look at UK and what you see is the central bank raising the interest rate, and at the same time you kind of see the government cutting the taxes. So it's like both stimulus and tightening full. So this kind of gives you an idea of, okay, there is a lot of uncertainty in the market, but you see opportunities too. And not all of these are going to be the massive blast in the price. They are slowly grinding to the upside, but some of them, with a lot of volume as we speak, they do move higher. You actually see volume increasing. See, here we see like Woo, Sushi, Fella, all of these are getting more and more volume. And compared to what the buyers are doing and sellers are doing, you kind of get the narrative. Okay, here we see, at least on Sushi for the time being, you see a lot of buyers, not sellers. So maybe there is something happening there. We'll look into that as we go through. But keep this in mind, XRP breaking this one is not actually a good thing. Now, this is a chart from the coin market cap, but as we look at it on an exchange, this is eToro, it actually shows you like we broke to the downside. So what are we looking at? On a macro scenario, we don't really want to see the price going below this range of 0.44. But on a short-term scenario, now that does mean short-term you can do go downside, but before the week close, you need to come back above 0.44. That is your term for being positive for next week ahead. So now, yes, you do see a lot of volatility, like you see the red, green. So the easy way to reduce the noise, as I do, is to go to a HA chart. So in the Hiknashi, it actually gives you this idea. Now, do understand the fundamentals are changing. Digital Pound Foundation putting this one, in my humble opinion, is massive for Ripple as a software company and XRP Ledger as a platform, right, for the payments. So right now, when they discuss through how they can support the central bank digital currency, and Digital Pound Foundation is kind of, supporting that narrative and putting it out, it does make sense because, on the other side, you see a lot of uncertainty where you don't get much idea. But on the other part of the world, they are pushing this one because they all understand this is now likely. But the real question for that, for me, would be like, okay, you go on, you look at different stocks and you're like, okay, this is at 241 right now. The bottom was like 165, 163. If you remember, we talked about that before. Now, one thing which we all want to know is when the price does that massive move to the upside. But keep this in mind. When the price moves to the upside, you need to stay focused and ask this question to yourself, am I missing an opportunity? Because sometimes it can take long time before it actually starts to run up. So here you see like 300 days close to this bottom, a year close to this bottom. Now that will also be considered as a recession because you're already down 30-35% in general markets. We are already down. Crypto is massively down, right? So what are we looking at as we go through even the adoption scale? You see a lot of people building during this hard time because they know there will be a bounce which is coming eventually because the governments are already pushing the stimulus. Just the central banks are trying to fight the inflation, which is right now hard. But all of this is going to evolve as you look at things like this, because this one was an indicator how the inflation took off. And right now, that's kind of at the long term bottom. So it just massively crashed down. So what you are going to observe from here is going to be that surprising magic move in the market, which you really don't want to miss. But you need to see the argument for both sides. This is where Bitcoin took off to the upside, then slowly corrected back down. So this happened to be the long-term support range and resistance where you are at right now. Say another asset, if you're looking at Stellar, this is again something from 2018, late 2018, 2019, all the way to this day. That's a support resistance zone. So if you happen to hold this, if you happen to play by the pattern, this pattern is bullish. But do we really have room to the upside or downside? Yeah, if you are getting rejected from there, you still can come to the downside and still you will be inside that bullish pattern. But short term, if you are not in the right trades, it may actually hurt you. And especially if you are leveraged, this kind of market narrative can definitely hurt you. This is the scientific investor family, where the normal, common guys learn how to become the next top 10% of the world. Now, don't worry, this is already after 6 minutes, but it's not going to be too lengthy, as you say. Now, breaking this down, if you are looking at Stellar and saying, okay, there is a room for downside like this, maybe not, maybe yes, that's a possibility. But then you go on to a zoomed in version of that to understand what literally is happening. Are you really getting momentum to the downside? It does seem like that. At least it's going to test maybe the bottom here, 0.1, that's a possibility. Then you go on to XRP. So on a short term, zoomed in view, you are looking for this pattern. If you're bouncing, that's all good, great. But if not, it's a concern. Because right now, if you break that range here, then on a weekly chart, that means you're coming down. Now, when you come down on that weekly chart, this is going to be your support range, which has been a strong support for a long period of time. Now, what do I mean by long period of time? You just zoom a little bit out and take the same range and look through the history how investors reacted to this price range. And it do look interesting because when the price drops, if they are already waiting, they may buy way before it actually hits this 0.38, 0.39, 0.4. These range can be really frustrating because there would be a lot of price volatility inside that if we are headed to that direction. But remember, if Bitcoin is dropping this level, that's going to be bad. But on the macro side of things, when you look at it and say like, okay, maybe the worst is already done because you already reached this low in most of that stuff and the inflation is sky high. If central banks are pushing a little bit more, something will break somewhere for sure. Maybe banks, maybe big institutions, that is still possible. But the way you're looking at right now towards the dollar index, it kind of show you that, okay, on a monthly, you are kind of putting in a wick. Now, that on a monthly is substantial in my thought process because as we look at this on a monthly, you're getting a slow down and that may signal you like, okay, we are slowly going down. But that may not happen overnight, but it may still show you the signal that we are slowing down. Say, what was the signal here? It was a long down candle erasing the previous momentum, an engulfing candle, right? So an engulfing candle can give you that idea we are going down. But you don't really have to wait till a month to see that. You come here on a daily and you see like, okay, the price is making a lower high. We want to see whether it's going to make a lower low. So in terms of the price, if you put that here, if you break below this level, now you're making a lower low and a lower high, which shows you the risk bears or the sellers are getting stronger here, or at least the buyers are moving back out. But can this be a long-term scenario? I doubt that because if you are looking at dollar on the macro, this is what you are looking at. You have been trending like crazy from some time. So if you put that numbers into perspective, this can be a support. You are still at this resistance. There is no argument that you are not at. If you get rejected, you may come lower, consolidate here, and then go back up. So the dollar can still go higher, break different countries. But for the time being, it's going to be really hard, as the history suggests this range has been a resistance. But if you remember, we discussed about this chart compared with the crypto XRP, and we saw great things. The data actually show you like, okay, there is a lot of data points which give you the sample. We may drop here to 100, 103, but crypto is going to do great in numbers. So if you are in the market, you don't really want to miss those. So especially when you look at XRP for that matter, yes, weekly you may have a short-term correction, but not all the assets in the market is actually doing that. Some of them are grinding higher. Some of them are breaking higher. So when we look at different assets, say if you are looking at the market and asking different stuff, so you just saw like, okay, Anchor is moving higher. So if you want to look at that and ask that question to yourself, like, should I enter now? The price is moving. What you really want to ask yourself is that question like, okay, did the corrective trend change? Are we bullish now? Yes, it can be a bullish choice for short term when you see these breakouts, but the question is, how long do you have to go to the upside? So if this was your top where you have the resistance and you're already there, you don't have too much room. Do you see that? Yes, you do see there is a breakout. The price did move through that, but you have resistance. So unless you break this range, it's going to be really hard to be that guy on becoming bullish on this. But if you do, now a retest and bounce is going to do that new trend. But then you come to the market, you see a lot of different assets doing this. So you are really confused. So make sure you kind of look at a lot of assets, one, and then look for the change in trend. Say when we are posting things, we are posting like where we enter, where we exit. Some of these which we've been entering in last couple of days is because of change in trend. So you go look at different things. One, say for example, this is your previous resistance. You broke that, you come back, retested that, you bounced. Then what happened? This became your resistance. Now you're breaking through that. So that's just a signal in the market that it is slowly going to go higher. Now, if you go on to this, people ask, okay, those are like the small cap coins. Some of these small caps are slowly grinding back up, but these are not the micro caps, right? These are small. You still have volume here. It's like 100 million traded over last 24 hours. That's a decent volume. Say DYDX, it's like 57 million traded in last 24 hours. That's not bad. So you are looking at least 10 million or above traded in last 24 hours. That would be kind of a safe area. Then you go look at like Matic, CRV, all of these are slowly grinding higher. So the argument of crypto being an interested asset class for a lot of people at this time is now slowly growing. So if you actually go on different assets to look like, are we closing in on something? We definitely see something happening, right? You definitely see a pattern which historically has been bullish. And if you are breaking through that, it definitely means you are now going up, at least till the next level of resistance, where you form a different pattern, different measured moves, and all of which we post regularly on the Patreon. So if you want to get a glimpse of that, you can look at the Patreon. The link is given in the description below. So the market is crazy, but as the dollar moves slowly back down towards this level, I'm not saying you're going to go this way. The chances for that does not look too good. But yeah, you do see a lot of different stuff happening in the market where you kind of get that narrative like, okay, even Saudi is looking to join the BRICS. So it's like one of the biggest oil rich nation, which actually gives supply for the oil for most of the countries, and it goes through different things. Now, this is the one I actually wanted to talk. See, Saudi, when they want to join BRICS, they do understand the demographics, right? Where the population is distributed, where the middle class is increasing. And they also see what is happening to the West, where the middle class is decreasing. The gap between the middle and upper is now like, because the middle are being put into the poor category. A lot of them, not everyone, because some outwork others, out strategize and grind even during the hard times. So they make that from middle to upper middle or rich. Why? Because they take the time to do that. They take the efforts to do and go through that. So now, as we are looking through this, make sure of one thing. You look at your portfolio in various different stuffs and you understand, okay, your portfolio, you have 10 assets, fine. Some of them are not trending higher, but these are trending higher. Make sure some are actually not breaking to the downside. We've talked about different assets before, right? So right now, if you're actually going into different charts, different assets, say some actually shows you like, okay, maybe I'm breaking to the downside, right? You actually got a candle which had momentum, then you broke lower, you did get momentum. Then if you actually zoom in, you'll see there was a bounce, but that kind of failed. So now if you are going onto a short-term chart and asking that question, can we really survive? That is a possibility because this is going to be a support, but you now have to go back up, hit this level, break that to come back into this territory, which seems a little bit hard. Before breaking to the downside, this was a resistance. So most likely when you come up, that's going to be a resistance. So you have a lot of different assets which are now having trouble, right? So when you actually go onto the macro scale of this and look at all these assets, whether you are completely in it or you don't have that, now it's just a glimpse of what you should be careful of. If that was a support for a long period of time, you broke that and retested and failed. Now, until and unless this breaks back up, going super bullish on this one, unless you have the insider information of the project, is going to be bad. And that's not literally legal to do that. So automatically, we don't have the incentive to go on to this unless you're super bullish on next 10 years, 5 years of this, and you have that 3 to 5 years to invest on. If not, what you literally want is trending asset which are slowly grinding to the upside, and maybe next 3 months, 6 months, 3 years, you get a decent profit. And when you're in the market, instead of watching a lot of social media, try to see what these guys are talking about. Not just one, listen to 4 or 5 different guys and try to combine all of that, because not everyone will give you the same opinion. And you're sitting there trying to make sense of, okay, these are the different things which they are saying as opinion, but these are the facts below that. Now we put on all the facts and ask that question, okay, what do you think is going to come up? A plus B is equal to C. Is that narrative going to play out, or is that going to be A multiplied by B? That depends on which currency you are in, which assets you are in, and all. But all of this is actually going to help you to go through this season of uncertainty and come out as a winner. Guys, if you received value, please do hit that like and subscribe button. I'll meet you guys on the next video. Bye-bye.